Good evening in Tilburg and in Paris. Today we have a match from the quarterfinals. This is the fourth match of the quarterfinals between two teams who qualified from the eighth of finals of the Hague Inter-University Law Debate Tournament organized by the Coax Foundation. And we have Tilburg University and Paris 1 Pantheon-Sorbonne University. So these two teams will debate on topics they received a week ago in order to have possibility to be in semi-finals among the four best teams of this competition. So for this match we have, of course, two teams present today and as well one coach. We'll ask them to introduce themselves before the match starts. So I would like to ask Miss Dinmar to introduce herself. Welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Emily Dittmar. I'm a third-year law student at Pantheon-Sorbonne in Law and Economics, and I'm pleased to be here today.
Thank you and welcome. We have as well Mr. Dejan Ristov in Tilburg. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Dejan Christoph. I'm a second-year global law student, and I'm happy to be debating today against the Paris team, and I would like to wish them good luck.
Thank you very much. We have as well in Paris Mr. Martin Velev. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Martin, and I'm a third-year bachelor's in law student at the University of Paris. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you, welcome. We have as well Miss Denitsa Boykova in Tilburg. Welcome.
Hi everyone, my name is Denitsa. I do global law like Diane, but I'm in first year and I'm super happy to be here with you. I look forward to the debate.
Thank you, welcome. And we have Miss Meghna Mamoubani in Paris. Welcome.
Hello everyone, I'm a third year law and history student at Pantheon-Sorbonne, and I look forward to our debate. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you. And I think there is as well one coach in the room. Can you hear me, Mr. Aguirre Rosas?
Yes, my camera is not working.
Yes, but you can still introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, I'm Venancio Aguirre. I'm global law student as well. I'm coaching Tilburg University, and I wish both teams good luck in this match.
Thank you, and we send greetings as well to your colleague, second coach, Miss Dana Vasile, who participated last year as well representing Tilburg. And special greetings as well to Elsa, because today we have two Elsa chapters, Elsa Paris 1 and Elsa Tilburg, facing each other in this match. So the topic which was sent a week ago to both teams was victims of environmental harm must have direct access to international tribunals to claim compensation. So now I will share my screen for the allocation of positions, and then we'll know live which team will be in favor or against the motion. So normally you should see my screen where there is a wheel with the double flags and logos of your respective institutions. Two chances, one chance to be in favor, one chance to be against the motion. The team will be in favor, will be starting the match in with the first introduction. For this match, that will be Paris 1 Pantheon-Sorbonne University will be against the motion, and as a consequence, that will be Tilburg University will be in favor of the motion, and will be starting the match with the first introduction. Concretely, it means that Tilburg University will defend the position that victims of environmental harm must have direct access to international tribunal to claim compensation, while Paris 1 Pantheon-Sorbonne University will defend the position that victims of environmental harm must not have direct access to international tribunals to claim compensation. So now you have 5 minutes to review your notes, and then we hear the introduction by the team from Tilburg. Here we are done with the 5 minutes of preparation. I stop sharing my screen. So I remind for everybody watching the match that this is my colleague with a yellow card and red card will be showing the time. Yellow for 30 seconds, red you can finish your sentence, and please don't start a new sentence, you may be penalized by the judge for going over the time. So now I give the floor to the team from Tilburg University for your introduction. You have 4 minutes.
Excuse me, I just want to say first that because of the number of people on the screen, I cannot see your colleague with the signs. So maybe if she turns on her camera, I'm not sure.
Can you select do you have a ribbon with the different cameras on the top of your screen?
Yes.
Because actually with the arrows you can move the cameras.
Another option is to keep it in gallery view. That will always ensure you can see my view.
All right, I think, yeah, now it's showing everything. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
If anything, don't hesitate to message me directly in the message. That applies to all members that will be speaking today.
All right, thank you. So I am presuming I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible and visible. You can start.
Honorable judges and esteemed opposition, our team stands in support of the position that victims of environmental harm should have direct access to international tribunals in order to claim compensation. To support our position, we'll present you two main arguments, the first one being that transboundary environmental harm requires an international forum, and the second one is that international law provides a legally binding duty to receive judicial redress. Our first argument holds that transboundary environmental harm requires an international forum. National courts cannot always deal with cases which involve multiple states and multiple jurisdictions, and therefore cannot provide victims with effective remedies. International issues are dealt with at the international forum. A good example of how that functions is the Eritrea-Ethiopia Claims Commission, which swiftly, in under a decade, resolved cases of war crime-related claims, compensated individuals directly, and also on the side ruled that environmental harm can be compensated. International principles also support the idea of direct participation, with Principle 10 of the Rio Declaration stating that affected citizens must participate at the appropriate level, and Principle 22 of the Stockholm Declaration stating that states must cooperate in order to create rules for liability and damage which go beyond their national jurisdiction. We have seen this idea also in some judicial decisions, for example, the case of Portillo Caceres versus Paraguay in front of the United Nations Human Rights Committee, where the committee ruled that the farmers' right to life had been violated by the state of Paraguay due to its failure to stop toxic pesticide pollution. Now, what this case is showing us is first that individuals can technically go on the international level to talk about issues relating to environmental harm. However, the outcome of the case was merely a recognition for the man involved. He did not receive the appropriate compensation. This is why we need to recognize the right proposed by the motion in order for victims to have the appropriate avenue to take and to actually receive the compensation which they deserve. For second argument, we hold that international law creates a legally binding duty to provide judicial redress. This is enshrined in Article 2.3 of the ICCPR, as well as other documents such as Article 13 of the ECHR. Now, what those two have in common is that they're both human rights treaties. But as we saw in the example provided by the argument above, human rights law is not always the correct mechanism to take when it comes to compensating environmental harm, because it simply does not provide the necessary remedies. Human rights mechanisms focus on direct individual harm and short-term harm, whereas environmental harm is on the opposite, quite complex and long-term, as shown by decision of the state court in Essen on the case of US versus FRA AG, which is a famous case of Peruvian farmers suing a German company for damages due to global warming. In those cases, victims have not only to prove harm, they also have to link it to an actor, be that a state or a company. And in practice, that is not very easy because one cannot easily prove that his illness is a direct result of, say, one country's mining operation. Another hurdle in front of individuals while in using human rights law is that human rights courts will not take cases unless individuals have exhausted all domestic remedies. And in corrupt systems where courts will not even hear those cases, that leaves people without any redress. Now, what we're seeing here is that the right to a remedy is failing people in practice when it comes to environmental harm, because there is no appropriate mechanism to uphold it. This is why we need to recognize a direct access for victims of environmental harm to international courts for the sake of justice and for the sake of upholding principles of international law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we hear as well the introduction from the team from Paris 1 Pantheon-Sorbonne University. You have as well 4 minutes.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Perfect. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. Good evening, esteemed judges, organisers, and colleagues from Tilburg University. We all obviously sympathise with victims of environmental disasters. Their suffering is real and the desire to help them is definitely noble. However, good intentions are not enough. We must ask, will this proposal actually deliver justice, or could it just create false hope? As the opposition, we firmly argue against the motion. Giving victims direct access to international tribunals for compensation, while well-meaning, is legally flawed, impractical, and, well, very likely counterproductive. There are better ways to achieve environmental justice. First, this idea collides with the foundations of international law. Global tribunals operate on state consent and sovereignty. The International Court of Justice accepts only state as parties, not individuals. With rare exceptions, individuals therefore have no standing on the global stage. To suddenly open international courts to private lawsuits would require rewriting treaties and overriding national sovereignty. How would states react? Likely with fierce resistance. Governments would see it as an infringement on their authority and an intrusion into domestic jurisdiction. Undermining that system risks creating more conflicts than it tries to resolve. Second, the practical obstacles are overwhelming. Setting up an international tribunal with open-door access for individuals would demand broad global agreement. Is that likely? Unfortunately, probably not. And without the biggest players on board, any tribunal would be a paper tiger, its verdicts easily ignored. Remember, international law has no global sheriff. If a country or company refuses to comply with a judgment, who will force it? Or who will force them? We could see an international court order compensation for a devastated community only to have the polluter just shrug and walk away. Meanwhile, those victims would have waited years for legal resolution. That's not justice, it's, well, a mirage. Think also about the complexity of environmental harm. Take climate change. Its damage stems from cumulative actions of dozens of nations and industries over decades. Who exactly would a tribunal hold liable, and for how much? These are highly political questions, and courts are ill-equipped to answer. US courts have already warned against wading into such matters. In other words, such cases would drag judges into foreign policy far beyond their role. Instead of swift justice, we'd likely get diplomatic standoffs. Third, we have better ways to help environmental victims. Rather than inventing a new global court, which states will probably never agree to, let's strengthen what already works, what we already have. Domestic courts can and do handle transboundary cases. There are instances of communities suing multinational polluters in the polluter's home country and winning. We should encourage more of that cooperation, how victims bring cases in jurisdictions where the wrongdoer can be held accountable using the laws we already have. We should also leverage international cooperation instead of confrontation. I mean, look at COP27, where nations agreed to create a loss and damage fund to support countries hit hardest by climate change. Same goes for maritime law. We oppose this motion not because of lack of compassion, obviously, but because we value effective justice. We all want to aid victims of environmental harm, but we must do so in ways that are realistic and actionable. Instead, we should focus on empowering domestic courts, enforcing existing international laws, and cooperative solutions to hold polluters accountable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we are moving to the first rebuttals. I give the floor to the team from Tilburg University for your first rebuttal. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, honorable judges, honorable opposition. We heard a very significant emphasis on how difficult it is to enforce such a measure in international law. However, following the logic of the opposition, any measure that is difficult to implement and that might potentially lead to justice but is difficult to implement should be forsaken. It should be left out. Well, we do not believe that justice works this way. But we do agree with one of the statements of the opposition, that is that the courts are ill equipped to answer to such situations, particularly though that is domestic courts. Now, take for instance the example which my colleague provided with Luya versus RWE. The proceedings in that case have taken more than 10 years, and there is still no conclusive end to those proceedings. Now, this demonstrates that judicial systems, domestic judicial systems, are ill equipped to deal with multi jurisdictional issues. But there's also another problem with domestic legal systems. That is that the rule of law worldwide is eroding, and it is eroding at incredible scales. Now, for example, according to the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index for 2024, more than 6 billion people now live in countries where the rule of law is weaker than it was in 2016. So, in other words, in a span of 9 years, in most of the world, the rule of law has deteriorated. But that is not the only problem. Legal scholars agree to the fact that the current system of international law, which is based on state sovereignty and clearly defined borders, is simply failing to deal with the issues of climate change. This is, for instance, affirmed by Professor Philip Sands. However, the International Bar Association also pointed it out and said that existing international law is not designed as it stands to limit greenhouse gas emissions or achieve climate change justice. Therefore, we believe that these measures should be implemented in order to solve those pressing issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we hear the first rebuttal on the side of the team from Paris 1 Pantheon-Sorbonne University. You have 2 minutes.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to say that our proposal, our arguments are of a more realistic nature, and they don't simply try to say that because it's difficult to implement, we should not do it at all. It's just that certain core principles of international law would be violated. And for example, the International Court of Justice or the World Trade Organization, they're built on state consent and they're intergovernmental bodies and not open access courts. Then another argument is the Bankovic versus Belgium case, which reaffirmed that jurisdiction must be clearly established. And so, as my colleague already mentioned in the introduction, individual access would require rewriting fundamental treaties, and we clearly don't have time to do that. Then the enforcement, as good as it sounds, is a fiction because international courts, they don't have the executive tools to reinforce such judgment. So, for example, ruling in favor of a devastated village means little if the state ignores it or if a company ignores it. And we've seen that without state cooperation, compliance falters. So a reform would promise justice, but in reality it risks delays, costs, and disappointments. And then in the end, I would say that we already have better tools. For example, in the Kilbo versus Shell in the US, the victims have sued polluters successfully in domestic courts, and existing oil pollution compensation funds show that compensation can work through cooperative international mechanisms and not adversarial courtrooms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we'll hear the second rebuttal. We hear first the second rebuttal from the team from Tilburg University. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Honorable judges, honorable opposition, we already heard an argument from the opposition about how core principles of international law will be violated if we were to implement such an international tribunal. But isn't that exactly what's happening right now? Core principles of international law being violated, such as the right to health, the right to healthy environment. Well, furthermore, we heard from the opposition the argument that there are already existing funds and measures taken, and we heard specifically the loss and damage fund, but that fund has been historically unsuccessful in addressing the issues that it was supposed to address. Now, there are many issues with the idea that the opposition is trying to bring forward. For instance, it's the fact that developing countries are suffering disproportionately from harm, not only inflicted by developed countries, but also inflicted by themselves. And for example, according to the World Bank, domestically caused environmental degradation causes significant financial losses to developing countries, including, for example, a 9.3 GDP loss to East Asia. Now, this goes on to show that countries are not only losing their livelihoods, their social systems, their healthcare systems, but they're also losing any economic means for development. And aren't these the principles that international law is fighting for? The prosperity of humanity, not only the terms such as sovereignty and clearly developed borders. Now, furthermore, if we continue on this path, we would leave vulnerable groups such as indigenous tribes unprotected. And domestic systems are already highly incapable in dealing with those issues with indigenous groups. For example, the Zamling company versus the Penan indigenous tribes people situation, where the tribes people were forced to block logging operation because the country of Malaysia would simply not address their claims. Now, isn't this what we call an absence of justice? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we hear the second rebuttal from the team from Paris 1 Pantheon-Sorbonne University. You have as well 2 minutes.
Honorable judges, esteemed delegates, it seems to be that the opposition has taken up that laws have already been violated, and that the fact that we counter the existence of no action in terms of environmental harm to people who suffer it seems to already be in place. So if that is true, then we must bring up the Argenda Foundation versus the Netherlands case in 2015 that happened to work miraculously. And one of the reasons why there was such a good and eminent success of that case is because there were clear foundations of constitutional and civil law of the Netherlands that permitted to tackle this issue. So what do we see here? We see that there is judicial basis in a nation's legal system that allows to condemn certain crimes. Now, what we must understand is that there is not a consensus around what environmental harm is on an international scale. And furthermore, international bodies do not give constraining measures. They do not have states do not have an obligation to actually take upon and actually pay or suffer any of the implications or any of the punishments that can be given by international bodies. So if international bodies are not constrained, truly, what effectiveness would it be to give victims of environmental harm direct access to these international bodies? Would it mean creating an entire new judicial system? Now, of course, that is obviously complicated. But even if we were to build one, it would mean exhausting all of our local measures, all of international resources to in fact create something, an international consensus that is almost impossible to achieve, be it on a physical level and also in a practical level, being that the amount and the sheer number of cases would be impossible to deal with on an international level. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we are moving to the conclusions. We hear first the conclusion by the team from Tilburg University. You have 2 minutes.
Honorable judges, honorable opposition, establishing a direct access to international tribunals for victims of environmental harm is the only way of preserving the principle of ubi ius, ibi remedium, which translated from Latin means when there's a right, there's a remedy. And in this situation, there's a clearly established right. Now, our opponents brought forward a number of points. For instance, they argued that sovereignty would be breached, that it would be very impractical and very difficult to implement such measures. But quite frankly, as we already emphasized, difficulty should not be a constraint for justice. In fact, justice has met difficulty at every point. Now, we highlighted that transboundary harm, which is most of the times the case with environmental harm, is very difficult to be dealt with in a domestic forum and requires an international forum. We also emphasized that there is an already existing legally binding duty to provide judicial redress. And we emphasized as well that the current state of affairs is unable to provide that judicial redress. Now, we believe that our position presented a more nuanced and multi-dimensional view of the issue at hand. We drew examples across multiple fields. For example, we also utilized case law. We presented codified international hard law. Most importantly, we also referred to statistical data. We believe that through our arguments, we emphasized how important it would be to establish such a tribunal in order to ensure that justice is served. Now, conclusively, we stand firmly in support of the statement that victims of environmental harm must have direct access to international tribunals to claim compensation. We believe that those victims have long sought such compensation for their suffering and their harm, and we believe that it is the high time that we recognize the need for such compensation and we establish the tool for its materialization. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we hear as well the conclusion by the team from Paris 1 Pantheon-Sorbonne University. You have as well 2 minutes.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so distinguished judges and fellow debaters, this debate is not about environmental victims deserve justice, because they absolutely do. The question is whether the motion provides the best path to achieve it. Opening the doors of international tribunals to individual claims sounds bold, but faces legal, institutional, and political walls, making an international consensus unachievable physically and practically. The courts aren't built for it, the treaties don't support it, and the enforcement mechanisms simply don't exist. Creating false hope is not justice, it is a disservice. Instead, we should focus on domestic legal capacity, reinforce existing regional systems, and develop compensation funds that deliver real help faster with fewer hurdles. Let's work towards a solution that empowers victims within structures that can deliver. Let's not gamble justice on legal architecture that the world is not prepared to build yet. We oppose this motion not out of indifference, but out of conviction, because to us, the road to accountability must be both principled and practical. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we just heard the 2 conclusions. So from now, you are not under evaluation by the judge. So now we'll hear from you your impression on the performance of the 2 teams, and as well the topic, and as well how you prepared it. And then at the end we finish with a bit of networking. So now I would like to hear from Miss Dietmar. What do you think about the match?
It was a great match. I especially think that the other team was really well prepared. I really appreciated their arguments and their reasoning. We are currently in the middle of our exam period, so we tried our best with the time we had, but it was nonetheless a very interesting debate, and it was super interesting researching it. And it was actually great to have this topic, seeing as we've touched on different subjects such as environmental harm, international jurisdiction, etc. before, but now we were able to just bring it all together and look at different things in more detail. So thank you so much for the topic, and to my teammates and the other team for this debate.
Thank you very much. Mr. Christophe, what do you think of the match?
Well, I appreciate the performance from the other team as well. We're also in the middle of exam season, so it's a little bit of a hurdle, and we feel the other team with that. Yeah, I felt that there were good points on both sides, and generally I felt that the other team did a great job at preparing for this debate. So I congratulate them on their performance. Yes, I'm looking forward to other competitions in the future in which we might face them as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Velef, what do you think of the match?
So I think the topic was really interesting, because as always, I'm not very into these environmental topics. I'm more of a business law person. So it was really interesting again to come out of this business-related domain. And then I'd also like to congratulate the other team because they clearly have done their homework and they were also very convincing in their argumentation, and also the debate style was really good. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Miss Boykova, what do you think about the match?
I think it was a great match. I want to say congratulations to the other team for taking your time and persisting through exams and everything to be here. So the topic was also quite interesting to me. I was interested to see how the other team would spin it, because at the beginning I wasn't sure like how we should put it too. But yeah, thanks a lot for your time, guys, and thanks for being here with us.
Thank you. Miss Mabubani, what do you think about the match?
Well, I think it was wonderful. Thank you to my teammates, but also thank you to the opposing team that spoke very eloquently and very fluidly. So that was really enjoyable. And the topic was very interesting. I thoroughly liked the idea of environmental harm, just because it's a difficult term to actually define. I've not really come across any definitions that more or less meant the same thing. And so I thought it was really fruit for thought, and it still is. So I liked it.
Thank you. And the coach in the team is not here anymore. Okay, well. So well done for this match. That was a pleasure to see as well the evolution from the beginning of the competition until now. And of course, we wait now for the assessment from the three judges we'll be watching at this moment. So one is very far, so I guess in the morning she will be watching. And yes, so you will receive, of course, the gradient rubric by email before we're publishing it. And immediately after, we'll schedule for the semi-final match for the winner of this match. So now we'll move to the last part of the match, a bit of networking. I will ask each of you what is your personal or professional dream you would like to achieve during the next coming years connecting to your studies, for example. And after I will give you the second question. So I would like to start with Mr. Velev. What do you want to achieve during the next years?
For me, as of now, I want to concentrate more on the present and just get into my master's degree. I do have some kind of expectations for the future and also certain aspirations, but I like to keep those private until they happen. So in that sense, for now, it's only the master's.
Okay. Wish you the best then. Miss Boykova.
For me, I was going to say probably the same thing, because I'm first year, so the only thing I'm looking forward to is just getting good grades and figuring out what I want to do, and then managing to be accepted into a master that reflects that.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Ristov, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I would say that my first professional dream is to pass my complex exam because it's coming pretty soon, and it's sort of the axe of exams we have. But afterwards, yeah, I haven't really decided. I'm really interested in more creative fields of law, which allow you to do more operative work, but also emphasize your skills in argumentation and creating a narrative. So I'm thinking about human rights, but I'm also thinking about maybe dispute resolution. It's a really undecided situation. So I'll need some time to really figure out what's my gig.
Okay, thank you very much. Miss Mabubani.
So my plans are a bit convoluted, but I'll say them anyway. So obviously I want to get into a master's degree, and I'd like to do a master's degree in comparative law, in comparative business law between common law and French law. But I'm also a historian, so I would like to somehow manage to get into a shortened program of a history of modern law, so that I can somehow do both at the same time and then pass the bar and get through all of that, so that I can maybe one day, I really hope that one day I'm a lawyer and I just decide to go back into the research field and really give myself to classical jurisprudence in the Roman Empire, because that's what I'm called to do. but I should pass the bar first. So that's the goal.
Okay, so thank you. Wish you the best as well. And Miss Dinmar?
As already mentioned by my colleagues, yes, the first goal is to get into the master's degree of my choice, and then afterwards also to pass the bar. So these two things are my goals at the moment, and then we'll see what comes along as well. But yeah, so for me as well, same here.
Okay, wish you the best as well. Seems that I'm the only one who is not in an exam, apparently. So, actually it will come soon, especially the grading of exams, which I hate. But yes, to be in June for me. So yes, wish you all the best, and of course, we will send you the results as soon as possible. Don't forget as well that there is a form circulating in case you want to come to the Netherlands for the finals. There will be the finals match for the third place and grand final on the 18th of June, which is a Wednesday, and there will be a reception. There will be visits as well of some institutions and some. Yes, there is a question, Mr. Ristov.
Yes, regarding the finals on the 18th. Now, should we get to that phase, because nothing is obviously decided, but should we get to that phase, we have an exam currently from 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning.
Oh,
Is there any chance that there might, like, we can have the match at 12 maybe, or at, let's say, 8 in the morning? Like, is there any chance we can make that, or is that completely off the books?
it would be possible from 12, but because the amphitheater, I think, is booked until 1, I think. I need to check, but it might be possible after your exam.
Yes, we'll be sadly unable to travel to the place in any circumstance, because there is no chance we can make it to the Hague that fast. But we'll definitely, if there is a chance to move it to 12, we definitely can join up online. And it's a very significant shame for us. If supposedly we qualify, it would be a very big shame not to go to the amphitheater. But yeah,
No,
it is what it is.
understand.
We
Yeah.
understand.
Yes, we understand.
In the past, even if the Tilburg team wasn't able to join for the debate during the final live, there's also other activities that after your exams, maybe you can also join and have the chance to meet
Should we make that phase? We would love to, but yeah, there is. We have to figure that out first.
Yes, so as soon as we have the results, we hope during right after the weekend, then we'll let you know to both teams, and then of course you will receive as well certificates of the ranking as well of the teams at the end of the competition after the finals. But for the moment, well done for this match. Now you can come back to your exams. Sorry to say, but yes, it is done for this match, and we hope to see you soon, very very soon, both sides. I mean, either in semi-finals, either in finals. In any case, to see you in person eventually. So thank you again, and we keep in touch. Wish you a great evening. Bye bye.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Congrats on the
Bye.
performance once again.
Thank you.